What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today, we've got another live fantasy football mock draft for you back on ESPN with a 12-team full PPR mock where we will be selecting 8th overall. Should be pretty interesting. And while we wait for this thing to kick off, a quick reminder, if you guys enjoy, hit that like button, subscribe, give us a follow on Twitter at AllDayPigskin to continue interacting with us there. Let us hear it in the comment section. Do you agree, disagree, along with any other questions you guys might have? We will do our best to answer them all. But with that being said, the first pick has been made. It is Justin Jefferson. And look, to this point, it's kind of funny. I feel like, when we switch up the platforms, obviously players get drafted in different spots. But, one day I do one mock draft and the first two picks are like Justin Jefferson and then Jamar Chase, like it is here. And then somebody tells me, oh, that's so unrealistic. You're not going to have two wide receivers being drafted in the first two picks. And then, we switch things up. We're like, okay, well, what if it's a different platform and then we select running backs and then we get yelled at, oh, Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase are going to be the first two guys selected. So I feel like the consensus right now, basically, I mentioned that to say, is still not established. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to take best player available. We're going to, try and approach this with a situation where we're just going to do what we think is best. Here, I've taken Bijan Robinson a lot when he's been available to me, this late, specifically in these ESPN mocks, but I'm going to switch it up a little bit. You guys know how much I like Bijan Robinson. I'm going to take Saquon Barkley. There's obviously a lot of hype about Bijan Robinson. I've hyped him up myself in my current, even though they are early, running back rankings and tiers. I do think that he is, if not there, knocking on the door of that tier 1 group of running backs. But here we went with Saquon Barkley. I want to highlight guys that I still believe in, guys that I'm still very high on at positions that I value. So that Saquon Barkley was definitely one of those guys. But other than Barkley, just showing you some of these picks, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and Cooper Kupp were the first 3 picks. So talk about wide receiver heavy. Then Austin Eckler, then Christian McCaffrey, followed by Travis Kelce. Tyreek Hill here, 7th overall, which allowed us picking 8th overall to go with either Saquon Barkley, Bijan Robinson, hell, Jonathan Taylor if we wanted to. Derrick Henry went 10th overall. I don't like that pick in PPR. I think there's a lot of other running backs that you could take there that are in better situations. Patrick Mahomes going 11th overall. I always try to highlight picks that I think are unrealistic or that I have issues with. Patrick Mahomes going in the first round is definitely one of those. That is an F quality pick. I don't care whether you think a running back or a wide receiver should be taken first overall. I think definitely what we can agree on is a quarterback should not be selected in the first round. Afterwards, it's Jonathan Taylor. And then we're going to get back to the other picks, but we are back on the clock here. And man, I'm going to continue to take advantage of the running back situation. I'm going to go Nick Chubb here. I like Chubb. I think that he's another good value pick. Before, I've targeted guys like Tony Pollard. But again, I want to make this roster a little bit different and highlight other names that I really like as well. If we went just cookie cutter type of situation, I think we probably would have exited the first 2 rounds with Bijan and Tony Pollard. But again, just want to shed some light on other guys that I am high on this year. So getting back to the start of the second round, what we saw was Devontae Adams, CeeDee Lamb, Stephon Diggs, Amon-Ra St. Brown. So a huge run on wide receivers, basically, to the point where, in my opinion, there was a drop-off in wide receiver production, which is what led to my selection of Nick Chubb. But afterwards, Josh Jacobs went, A.J. Brown, Garrett Wilson, Jalen Waddle, T. Higgins. So right now, I think it's absolutely first and foremost wild that Tony Pollard is still available. You know, he's been all over the place. Again, it's very dependent on what platform you are drafting on, but that's the beauty of it. That's why I love doing it across so many different platforms. And one of the video breakdowns that I do during the year is pulling up platform to platform to platform, like the three most popular platforms people use. So maybe like NFL, Yahoo, ESPN, and highlighting player differences, player ADPs. And depending on the platform you draft on, you can come up with very different rosters and capitalize on insane value. So I do like to do that exercise every single year. You know, I kind of indirectly do it when I switch up the platforms here on these mocks and I talk about it, but it's a little bit more direct when I do it closer to, you know, July, September, because things are going to change at that point in time. But other than that, look, Tony Pollard went with the last pick in the second round. Then Breece Hall, Ramondre Stevenson was still available in the third round. That trio of running backs, you know, in this case, if I start Justin Jefferson and then you tell me that Tony Pollard and Ramondre Stevenson are still going to be there for me in the second and third round, yeah, I would do that. I would make that trio of picks, but I really don't think that this is what you should expect come come August, come September, because quarterback isn't going to be drafted that early on. A wide receiver run isn't going to be that quick and that deep in the first round and a half. So that's just my 2 cents. Then we see Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Mark Andrews, Travis Etienne, and Najee Harris. So looking at the clock here, what are we working with? Chris Olave, I think by far and away right now, he's the best wide receiver available. The other running backs I don't necessarily love. I'm going Chris Olave here, and I'm not even second guessing it. So to me, that is an easy pick. Other, you know, again, just to show you the running backs that are still left, like Miles Sanders is still there. Kenneth Walker is still there. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. And I do think maybe at some point we're going to see that massive update of ADPs and rankings across, I mean, really all platforms, across ESPN, across Yahoo. I feel like it happens sometime in mid-August, probably. And a lot of these names are going to be a little bit higher, a little bit lower. But if you're drafting now, I mean, take advantage of ADP differentials. It's only to your benefit is what I'm trying to get at. So after our Chris Olave selection, we see DK Metcalf, Joe Burrow, and Devontae Smith. We don't really need any running backs at this point in time. Any more running backs, I should say. We've got Saquon, we've got Nick Chubb. And again, with the way that running backs are valued on ESPN, it is a position that we can just wait on. Right now, Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen, if we're looking at wide receiver possibilities, are up there. I like Calvin Ridley as far as a high upside wide receiver. You know, ESPN is going to consider it a quote-unquote reach, but again, I think that the value is there personally. So Aaron Jones, Deebo Samuel, Jahmyr Gibbs, if he is there for us, I'm strongly going to consider Amari Cooper and Keenan Allen. I realize I've already got Nick Chubb, but I think Amari Cooper with Deshaun Watson, we saw the potential last year. We obviously know how proven Amari Cooper is. We know Deshaun Watson is capable of. And of course, as I sing his praises, he is selected here 39th overall. But that's okay because we're on the clock. Keenan Allen is still there in full PPR. That's a pick that makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to just make that selection and move on. I think that Keenan Allen in the, essentially middle of the fourth round is a good value pick. Of course, we have to weigh, injuries, things like that into the equation. But as of right now, I always say you have to treat the situation as if the guys are going to play a full season. Yes, the injury history and the age makes him a little bit riskier, but if he plays the entire season, I think he's going to be a great value pick nonetheless. And obviously, maybe you compare him to a guy like a DJ Moore or Chris Godwin. Well, what we can say about Keenan Allen, at least, is that he is in a very, very pass-heavy offense with a proven gunslinger at quarterback, unlike a Justin Fields, unlike a Baker Mayfield, for example. So, with that being the case, I think that, again, we can make the argument for Keenan Allen being drafted ahead of some of these other wide receivers. So right now, at this point in time, what I'm hoping for, I mentioned his name before, Calvin Ridley. If he can drop to us, I would be very, very happy. If somebody like, I almost don't want to say the name to jinx it, but if TJ Hawkinson drops to us in the middle of the 5th round, towards actually the end of the 5th round, then that's a tremendous value pick in it of itself. Quarterbacks, just to highlight them, Lamar Jackson and Justin Fields are good value picks at this point in time as well. So that's something to think about. And of course, TJ Hawkinson was selected. So we're not going to be able to land what, in my opinion, should be a top 3-4 tight end here at this point in time. But it's all right. I think what I'm going to try for right now is getting Calvin Ridley, and then in the next round, maybe looking at a George Kittle, something like that. And if Calvin Ridley is selected here, then I could pivot and go with a Justin Fields, something of that sort. But let's go with Calvin Ridley. I was considering him around earlier. I get him here in the end of the 5th, so I'm happy with that value. We didn't select wide receivers in the first 2 rounds like pretty much everyone on ESPN did, but we used the last 3 rounds to go wide receiver, and I would argue that we ended up with a good trio of wide receivers: Olave, Keenan Allen, Calvin Ridley. I mean, all these guys on paper, have like top 12 upside. We saw what Olave did last year as a rookie. Now he has a quarterback upgrade. We know what Keenan Allen has done before, especially in PPR formats. And we know Calvin Ridley has been an elite wide receiver in the NFL as, early as, or as soon as recent as a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. But obviously the whole suspension thing, it was kind of looming over him. But again, I really like the landing spot in Jacksonville. So I like what we're working with at this point in time. Even though we went against the grain of the ESPN, algorithm of taking wide receivers early. So unfortunately here, George Kittle did get selected. There's been a little bit of a run on the tight end position. So, and we just got sniped on Justin Fields as well. Interesting. Okay. So what I'm going to do here instead, of course, we always have a backup plan, is I'm going to go with a high upside tight end that I also still like. That is Kyle Pitts. Somebody that you could argue could lead the Falcons in receiving. Other guy, Dallas Goedert, was also in consideration, but I went for the high upside, Kyle Pitts. I think you could argue has the higher upside than Goddard. To me, this year they're both ranked pretty close together. So I don't mind our selection of Pitts there. Would have loved to have gotten Justin Fields. I think that would have been a tremendous value pick, at that point in time. But it's okay. There's other quarterbacks that we really like. I doubt he makes it back to us, but I really would not be opposed to getting Trevor Lawrence to pair with Calvin Ridley. I think that'd be a nice little stack. So let's see if we have the option to do so. But other than that, look, we've got our starting roster pretty much all filled out. Saquon, Nick Chubb, Chris Olave, Keenan Allen, Kyle Pitts, and Calvin Ridley. I like that situation. Right now, other names that I am considering at this point in time, I already told you about the quarterbacks. Hopefully there's not a huge quarterback run, but we'll see. As far as, let's see, just good value picks that are still on the board, Anything at running back? I mean, Javonte Williams, I guess, but he is a late, like end of the year type of luxury pick in my opinion. Brian Robinson, potentially. DeAndre Swift, potentially. So to me, they're kind of the names that stick out at running back. At tight end, we don't really have to look at it too much. We've got Kyle Pitts. So, like, it is what it is at this point in time. At wide receiver, they're still good value. Like, Michael Pittman is still on the board. And man, we just got sniped with Deshaun and Trevor Lawrence being selected. So, as much as I would have liked Trevor Lawrence, we barely miss out. But I'm okay taking Dak Prescott at this point in time. A little bit of a reach, but I want to get that kind of next quarterback, next highest ranked quarterback, at least in my eyes. So we're going with Dak Prescott, and also for the sake of kind of finalizing our roster so we can give it a decent grade. But, this has been a really interesting draft, at least through my eyes, because we've dealt with a lot of things. We've dealt with a kind of unorthodox drafting strategy, if you will, but I can't even call it unorthodox because we all know how important running backs are. I guess just unorthodox if you draft on ESPN. And then we've also, put ourselves in a position where can we bounce back from not selecting a wide receiver in the first 2 rounds? I think, this kind of proves what good value there is at wide receiver, like in the 3rd through the 5th rounds. So I like that for us. Let's see what's available here at wide receiver. Jackson Smith and Jigba is tempting. I'm not going to lie. Running back, let's see if there's anything. Javonte Williams, like at this point, a decent investment, I guess. James Cook also isn't bad, but I just don't believe in the rushing attack of the Bills. So I just took a chance on Javonte Williams, taking a flyer. I feel really good about Saquon and Nick Chubb. But the other thing that I was going to say was this was our draft where we had to pivot a bunch because we got sniped on multiple occasions. We got sniped on TJ Hawkinson. We got sniped on George Kittle, on Justin Fields, on Trevor Lawrence. So a lot of names. And at the end of the day, I think the roster is a solid one. Now, of course, if you had told me that, I'm going to highlight it again. If we started this draft, drafted Justin Jefferson first overall, and then we're able to end up with Tony Pollard and Ramondre Stevenson, I would probably take that start over our first 3 round selections. But just because I think this should be your takeaway message here, you can start with one set of players in platform X does not mean you're going to be able to do the same in platform Y. So I am not going to, just absolutely try that strategy every single place that I go. I think that's unrealistic. And you kind of just have to take the draft as it comes to you, but also, sprinkle in a hint of realistic expectations, if you will. Here, I'm going to go with Alan Lazard. I think he makes a lot of sense. The number 2 to Aaron Rodgers, who I think is going to bounce back. Let's see what other options there are. Tight end, I could also invest in Dalton Schultz, kind of queue him up. But look, overall, I think that we were able to put together a solid roster. Again, hindsight is 2020. But all things considered, with some of the, adverse situations we had to battle here, I think we put together worst case scenario, like a B- type of squad. So I'll take it. But hey, let me know your thoughts. Do you agree, disagree, along with any other questions you guys might have? I'm going to continue to try and switch up the platforms we draft on, the strategies we draft on. I know it's not a one-size-fits-all situation, but at the end of the day, you can hopefully take away something positive from it. If you enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe, give us a follow on Twitter at AllDayPigskin to continue interacting with us there. And in the meantime, we'll see you guys in future videos.